Welcome to day 22 of the 30-day redemption. I am hosting for you, and my name is Kashab. Thank you for those who have taken this 22-day journey, and we have 8 more days to go. Today we're going to have a special presentation on elderly and legacy. Remember, we're doing 10 days of mind, 10 days of body, and 10 days of spirit. And we have a great 10-day run with excellent speakers for mind. We invite you to go to our Facebook page and type in 30-day redemption and really take a look or listen at those presentations. We had 10 days of body, again, excellent information. And now we're 2 days into spirit. So today, we're going to have a special guest, Estela De Sousa of the Future of Home Care. And she's going to touch on a very important topic, elderly legacy and how to build it. So we need to have this conversation on spirit because within the DNA and within family, there is a spirit that passes through family. And so Estela is going to take us on this journey and do her presentation. So take whatever notes you like, and please help me welcome Estela De Sousa. Estela?
Mute. Okay.
Hey, okay.
All right. Can you see me?
Can't see you.
Okay, great. All right. So let me pull up my slide. Hello, everyone. Like Ashab said, my name is Estela De Sousa, and I'm so grateful to be here today and to be your presenter. I've been following the 30-day redemption for weeks now, and it's just been such a blessing, and to be among such great speakers, it is definitely an honor. And thank you, Kashab, for trusting me with this topic. And so I want to start today by asking you all a powerful question. And I want you to think about this throughout the presentation. So think for a second. If you died tomorrow, what kind of legacy would you want to leave? Okay. So as someone who has recently become absorbed in the rich topic of elderly legacy, this question has made me think a little deeper. And so first, let's start by defining what legacy is. What is legacy? A legacy is a gift or inheritance of property. And despite of the dictionary's definition, legacy comes in many different forms and expressions: passion, vision, action, things that are tangible and intangible. And so a legacy is a story of someone's life, the things they did, the places they went, the goals, the accomplishments, the failures, and much more. And I really like this quote by Peter Struppel. And it says, legacy is not leaving something for people, it's leaving something in people. And so Dr. Martin Luther King is a perfect example of this. Dr. King.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Are you sharing your slide?
Yes, I am. Can you see it?
No, if you could go ahead and share it so everyone could see that.
Oh, man, I'm sorry.
Go to the Martin Luther King.
Okay, let me go back.
Sure.
How about now? Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay.
In presentation mode.
Sorry, guys. So yes, so first the question is, if you died tomorrow, what kind of legacy would you want to leave? And I started by defining the definition of legacy. Let me move this screen over. Okay, so the definition of legacy is a gift or inheritance of a property. And legacies come in many different forms. It's passion, vision, action, and things that are tangible and intangible. And like I said, a legacy is a story of someone's life, the things they did, the places they went, the goals they accomplished, and the failures and more. And legacy is something that a person leaves behind to be remembered by. And like I said, I really like this quote because it says legacy is not leaving something for people, it's leaving something in people. And I thought that was deep. And so Dr. Martin Luther King is a perfect example of this. Dr. Martin Luther King is a man I'm sure we've all heard of and a person we still celebrate today. And why? Dr. King realized that the best strategy to liberate African Americans and gain them rights was to use nonviolence form of protest. And so he recognized that nonviolence was strategically the only realistic option to oppress African Americans, or oppress African Americans to achieve justice, as well as the fact that violence would simply divide the races and make justice and reconciliation impossible. So for more than 2 decades, for more than 2 decades after his death, Dr. King's ideas, his call for racial injustice, racial equality, and his sense on the power of nonviolent struggle to bring a major transformation of American society has helped to catalyze many organizations like the Black Lives Matter movement organization. And so their mission was to build local power and to intervene when violence is inflicted on Black communities by the states and vigilance. And so Dr. King is one of the many great leaders whose legacy has left a stamp on the future and making a contribution to future generations. And now that we have defined legacy, this quote says, the best classroom in the world is at the feet of an elderly person. And someone in this quote is a perfect example why elderly legacy matters and the importance of preserving and carrying on the spirit and knowledge in those who came before us. So we're not here for only ourselves. We have to think beyond ourselves. This is why it's so important for us not only to, in these last 22 days, we have been, taught so much and all the contents here. It's been a great knowledge, but it's also, we must also apply these knowledges into our lives and pass it on down to future generations. So legacy is not what shapes the world around, legacy is what shapes the world around us. Someone that came before you paved the way. Whether it was your mom, your dad, your mom's mom, and your mom and your dad's dad, spirit works through DNA of family to fulfill legacy and purpose. And through Dr. King, we've seen that we know that the spirit is moving and it is transferred from generation to generation and from our culture, our morals, and our values. So it's important for us to learn the things and the people who came before us, and because they've made a way for us today. So what's my story? From a young age, I've always had the affinity for the elderly and the disabled. And from watching my grandmother, my mother, taking care of sick family members and neighbors in the heart of my country, Cape Verde, unknowingly sparked my passion to help those who could not help themselves. And so I've worked as a CNA, certified nurse assistant in several settings in the healthcare field, such as assisted living, nursing homes, and private residencies. And as my experience grew, so did my passion. Giving the highest quality care to elderly in my community has become my life's work. And in 2015, my mother, who's also a CNA, we decided that we were going to start our home care agency, which is Judy's Angels Care. And then 4 years later, I started a consulting business, the Future of Home Care, to help healthcare professionals and inspired entrepreneurs to start and operate their own home care business. So I have my mother to thank for this and for instilling in me the spirit of service, because hadn't it been for my mother her mother who has transferred the same spirit of caring for others, I probably would have missed the opportunity. And now this is also a legacy that I'm transferring to my 4-year-old daughter. So, is your family saved? I'm not asking for from a theological sense, but from a legacy standpoint. Have you taken the time to speak to the elderly person in your life? Have you downloaded their spiritual bank of knowledge, and have you saved it? If an elderly in your life has taught you what love, kindness looks like, that's elderly legacy. So this presentation is to acknowledge and appreciate the equity and the values that our elders has carried on, because this is what has nourished and reinforced who we are today and what we are here to do. So what's your story? In John 17:4, it says, Jesus said, I have glorified thee on earth. I have finished the work which thou gave to me. I really like this scripture because for me, it is a clear indication that our Heavenly Father transferred his spirit of legacy to Jesus Christ. And indeed, Christ has already accomplished the greater part by implementing the root in us today and the every good thing he has. And from these is what we follow by the necessity of the fruits of the knowledge of God. So it is in a sense that he has finished the work. He said, I have sowed, I have planted the root, and the fruit are sure to follow. The fruits are sure to follow. And so we are for sure following the legacy of Jesus Christ. And we are also supposed to transfer to our offspring. So how do you don't have to, so I like this quote, it says, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. And what are some ways you can create your family's legacy? You have the wealth, you have the knowledge, you have the wealth of knowledge, stories, and skills, and important history that you want to sure pass down to your children and your grandkids. Gathering all the details of your family for future generation can seem crazy, and it may be daunting, but it doesn't have to be difficult. You just have to start. And so I say, why not? These are some ways that you can start by creating your family legacy. So first, by talking to an elderly in your life, by hearing their stories and getting their information, and and hearing about how they grew up, and hearing about what are some things that has really changed them and how they were able to journey through life, because what they did is what we get and what passed on to us. And so, talking and sharing, traveling and documenting your family's health history, creating recipe books, making photo albums, writing an ethical will, writing and taping, illustrating photos and scrapbooking. And whoops, sorry about that, guys. Whoop. Okay. Can you see my screen? Just lost that.
Yeah, we can see it. Just yep, there you go.
Okay. So there's many ways that we can make it a project. You can get other siblings to join you and putting together your family's history and finding out, what are some things and the memories and the things that they build and the values that they held on from their ancestors, their grandparents, and what you can use in your future today. And so I would like to introduce you guys someone who was Peter Elbow. Peter Elbow he was a professor of English at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, and he is an author of numerous books and articles about writing. And he writes in numerous ways about how everyday spoken language can make writing as fashionable, lively, and clear, and even formal writing. So I will bring on Peter today. And, I met Peter. Peter's a family friend, and I met him I think it was 2003, where I met him through the program Big Brother, Big Sister. And he was my younger brother, big brother. And so from watching him, you know, how he was able to be there for my brother, not only for him, but for me, has greatly affected me and how he is and who he is. And so I really appreciate him. And I want him to come on today and kind of just share his story. And Peter, okay, I think I see you. All right, so everybody, here comes Peter. Hi, Peter.
Hi, Estela. This is wonderful.
Yes. So, you know, I wanted with you to kind of share your story with the audience and just share, you know, how the legacy and how the spirit of legacy has traveled down from your father and to you and your kids, and how you've been able to instill that in your life and in your kids' life.
Estela, before Peter goes, can you stop your screen share so that he can get bigger on the screen?
Okay.
Welcome, Peter. Okay. Okay, he could go. Welcome, Peter.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Estela. This is wonderful. You are, I'm so impressed to see what you are doing these days, and that you are just steaming along. So the question, I guess, is about my legacy. I think of my father and my mother, and then a third person. I think of a woman who worked for my family. We called her a maid. She was a black woman from South Carolina, but I grew up in New Jersey. She had moved up to New Jersey, and my family hired her to, actually, when I was born, my mother was having troubles. My mother's sister had committed suicide, and my mother was kind of in a funk or depression, and my father hired Estelle to come and live with our family and help out. So and she was a very powerful person, wonderful, strong, and smart person. So I had really three parents. But somehow the way you're phrasing all this makes me think of my father first. And my father, not just that I'll put him first, but he was the most generous and giving person in my life, although still too. But he, when I was growing up, my mother was a little bit absent. Her sister, my mother's sister, had committed suicide while she was living in the house with my mother and father. And so that, I think that sent my mother into a little bit of a funk. My mother was sometimes, or often, but not always, kind of out of it. But my pop was always there. He was always available. He was always a warm person. He would always give you hugs. He was physically affectionate, and that feels important to me. I always remember at dinner, he would just always reach over and put his hand on my mother's hand. He always showed his affection, and he always gave hugs. And they were good hugs. And this was back in the 40s and 50s when men were kind of undemonstrative. He was a Jew. He was a Jew. He married my mother. My mother was a Catholic, and so I was brought up as a Catholic. But my pop was a Jew, and the Jewish culture was more demonstrative than the Anglo-Saxon WASP culture, and he was very affectionate. And he wasn't scared to say, you know, especially when I was growing up, men, the culture of men, they were scared to show feelings. And but my pop wasn't scared to show his feelings, and he would show, and the feelings he showed were affection. he didn't he didn't like negative feelings. He didn't like anger. He didn't like. But anyway, he was a very giving and demonstrative person. And but I need to mention a third parent, Estelle Jones, uh, who was a servant hired by my father when my mother sort of sunk a little out of sight or lost her with her sister's suicide. My mother kind of got to be kind of out of it. So I grew up with three parents: my mother, my father, and Estelle Jones, who started her life in South Carolina, but this was near Paterson, New Jersey, and Estelle came from Paterson, New Jersey. So I feel like the legacy I've been uh, given, I was so lucky that I've been given, came from my mother, my father, and Estelle. My father, most obviously, he was very affectionate and kind and strong. My mother was very smart and quick and very uh, good at language. She could cut through. Uh, she saw to the heart of things, and she was very witty, and she was a little sharp-tongued. And Estelle was a strong person who was giving. I grew up. My mother, my sister, and my brother had been born 5 and 4 years before me, so I was the so-called baby, and Estelle came into our home a year or so before I was born. So I was considered, and Estelle considered me her boy. Uh, and I'm actually trying to write a memoir of my own, and but I'm putting it together with a memoir that Estelle wrote. And so these two memoirs, Estelle and mine, I want to try and publish them, and it will be called Her Boy. She called me Peter's my boy, and so I don't know. That gets me started. Is that okay, or you want to ask me any more questions?
Yeah. So, your father being, who he was, you said he was very affectionate. How has that transpired and how has that transferred to you and your children today?
Well, I grew up. Well, I started off with the kind of 1935 I was born. So you say in the 40s and the 50s, the boy in our culture was kind of scared to show feelings. And that was sort of true of me. But because of my father, not so much. And my son is named Benjamin.
Mhm.
I feel very well. I have a daughter too, Abigail, and both these children are so wonderful. I feel so lucky, and sometimes, I've had some hard times in my life, but I feel, and I can sometimes feel, oh dear, I'm not. Well, I beat up on myself a lot, and I say I'm not doing well. I was brought up as a Roman Catholic, and somehow they developed this. They their legacy to me was a very deep sense of guilt. I'm always bad. I'm a bad person. I'm guilty. And but my children, I look at my children and say, well, they're so terrific. I can't be all bad.
Right. You're not at all, Peter. And so, how do you think with your children today, what would you say, what would you like to happen in the next generation to come and their children?
Well, I would like them to just carry on and show, for them to be able to show affection, for them to be energetic. I mean, something I got from my father and my mother too was, or somehow, the way I grew up. I think the way I grew up, I was the youngest child. You know, I had this older sister, older brother, and I was the little kid tagging along, and I was always wanting to say, "Oh, you know, me too, me too. Don't leave me out. I want to go too." And often they would say, "Well, you're too young." And so my life, in a way, has been a struggle to get my voice heard. Wait a minute, listen to me. And so I want my children to try and live well. Because I think because of my growing up and feeling a little neglected by my mom and trying to keep up with my older brother and sister, my life has been a story of trying to say, me too, me too. I want to do something. I want to be. I want. Don't forget about me. I want to make my voice heard. And really kind of insecure. One of the things I'm sort of happy about is that my children seem secure, and they're not sort of compulsively trying to do something or make their mark. They're very quiet. They just live their lives, but they live their lives very wonderfully. So my son is he started out as a third and fourth grade teacher, but he turned fairly early. He turned himself into a physical education teacher in elementary school. So he works with little kids, and he's very brilliant with little kids, and he's a leader. And people, kids in his classrooms and gym classes look up to him, but other teachers look up to him. So it makes me feel very proud. And my daughter is a nurse. She decided late in life, in her 40s, I guess, to become a nurse. She had to go back to school and take courses. And so she's a nurse, and she works with Native families in Alaska, helping Native families, and especially Native mothers who are giving birth, you know, for a half a year before they give birth and after they give birth. So anyway, my children seem to be doing their bit to make the world a better place.
That's great. That's good to hear. And so I know when we met you, you know, we met you through the program Big Brother Big Sister, and you were you know, my younger brother Mario's big brother. And so what made you become a big brother? Because I mean, usually the big brothers are, you know, they're UMass college students and, you know, the younger kids. And so it was different when we saw you. So what made you want to become a big brother?
I'll tell you, funny. My son is very witty and has a great sense of humor. And when I became a big brother, he was probably, I don't know, 15 or 20, whatever age he. No, he's probably older, 20 or 25. Anyway, he was a little surprised. He said, "Well, you know, Pop." He calls me Pop. I called my father Pop, and he calls me Pops. He said, "Pops, you weren't always a barrel of laughs." Because I've always been kind of shy. But anyway, what made me want to be a big brother? I don't know. I heard about the program. A friend of ours ran the program in Amherst, Massachusetts, and I would hear about it from her. And I guess because my kids were grown up out of the house and off starting their lives, I just, well, I've always loved little children. I mean, Big Brother, you know, hooks me up with older children. But anyway, I've always loved babies and little children. I love how little children are just themselves and they're full of energy. I love to watch little children because they just can't stop moving, and they say they say whatever they think. They don't pretend to have feelings that are different from what they have. I love that. And so that's probably why even though they're not, Big Brother, Big Sister program didn't hook me up with babies, but it hooked me up with you and Mario and young people, and I've spent my life as a teacher. I always loved young people, loved to work with them. So anyway, that's I guess why I did it. I didn't have any more children in my life, so I signed up for Big Brother, Big Sister.
Yeah, and you were terrific at it. So one thing I wanted to ask you about legacy, how important is it to you that we preserve, or for you and your family to preserve legacy and to transfer to generations to come, like the things that you were, that was instilled in you from a little boy? How is it important to you to preserve that and carry on that legacy?
Well, I don't know. What comes to mind is that the world is gotten to be a fragile place. Things happening in the world. It's not as though we have more wars and violence in the world than there used to be, because there used to be there's always been quite a lot of terrible stuff. And one man who's written very interestingly, sometimes it just seems like everything's falling apart. He's a researcher, he's a historian, and he's written about how actually the world is getting better. There's fewer wars than there used to be. There's fewer murders and violence than there used to be, because we notice all the murders and the violence and the horribleness, but he takes a long perspective and he can show with very careful data and facts that the world is getting better. Humans are getting better. One of the things that struck me that's pertinent to our conversation, in general, parents treat their children better than they used to do. They used to beat their children much more, and children used to be kind of throwaway. Anyway, so I do feel like it's a struggle, but if you stand back and take the long perspective, I think more people are learning to be better parents.
Sorry about that. One moment.
Problem.
Nope, not right now. So with what you're saying about, the world is getting better, but right now we are currently dealing with an outbreak of the coronavirus. And so, you being an elder, how have you been coping with that? How have you been?
Well, I feel very lucky. We've been fine. We live in a retirement community. It's like a big building. Actually, if you count everybody, it's a couple of buildings stuck together, and there's actually 500 people here. Some of them, about 150 of them, are people who are in assisted living. It's like a nursing home. But 250 of us live independently, some single people and some married people. And so this building, it's called Horizon House, where we live. And they have been very, very, very careful about the COVID-19 and quite restrictive. We were locked in our apartments, or had to stay in our apartments for quite a while when it was first starting, and just to keep us safe. And there have been 3 or 4 out of the 500 people. There have been 3 or 4 people who have contracted the disease, and just in spite of all the care, and a couple of people died of COVID-19. But in general, this place has been very, very scrupulous and careful in trying to keep us from getting the disease. We were locked in a sense. We're anyway not allowed to go outside of our apartment, or even not, and certainly not allowed to go outside for a while, maybe a week, and that was very frustrating. But on the other hand, that was keeping us safe.
Good, good. And so, have you learned anything? I mean, I'm not sure if you've ever seen anything like this COVID-19 pandemic. You know, have you learned anything from this whole ordeal?
Well, you make me think that when you start that question about this, you think in my studies, I studied Geoffrey Chaucer, who was a poet in the 1400s, and in the 1400s that was when the Black Death came to Europe. Something like a third of the population of Europe died, and so in that sense, I've seen it before. A bigger proportion of the population died in the Black Death than now, even though the number of people who die now is horrendous. Have I learned? Well, for one thing, we've had to spend a lot of time staying in our little apartment. It's a 3-room apartment. And it's very nice. I mean, we're so lucky. We felt safe, and that's wonderful. But you do feel scared of the virus, because you don't know if you're going to catch it. It's invisible. Have I learned anything? Well, we've had to learn to be self-sufficient, and my wife and I, in a sense, had only ourselves. We couldn't see other people. But I was awfully lucky to be married and to have my wonderful wife. But anyway, we were sort of what they call lockdown. We were in a lockdown in prison. It makes me think of Estelle Jones, who I grew up with. I remember when I was little, I would say, "What time is it?" Say, what do you care what time it is? You're in prison. She was like that. Anyway, I like hearing from you, Estela.
Me too, Peter. And you know, I greatly appreciate you taking the time to support me in this. And you know, you've always been someone who I've looked up to, because you know, we didn't have a father figure. And when you came into our lives, we were all pretty young and just trying to figure out our lives, and you know, sometimes barely speaking English. And you've taught us, you took us out to, you know, to movies, to play sports, and you pretty much treated us like we were your own kids, even though you were just Mario's big brother, but you became our big brother and a father figure to us. And so I greatly appreciate you and all the work you've done. So it's just great.
Well, it's been a good part of my life, a very good chapter in my life, to be able to connect with you and your family, Estela.
Great. Yeah, so right now we can open up the floor for some Q&A. But before we part ways, I wanted to know, is there anything that you feel that you can share with the audience, like some parting words that you feel that can help us or carry us through right now and through our generation? Because you know, something you can share with us. We're dealing with this, and you have more experience than probably a lot of us on this call. So is there anything that you can share with us that can carry us on forward?
Well, what comes to mind is just the spirit of hanging in there, not giving up, keeping on struggling. When I was in school and college, I did cross-country racing, and not on foot the regular way, but on skis. This was in New England where it was a lot of snow, and I did competitive skiing, and one part of competitive skiing is cross-country racing, and to train in the fall and then to do it in the winter. The prime characteristic you needed was to just keep on, because you're trying to train or you're in a race, and you just want to, you're pushing yourself hard and you're trying to go fast. And I always remember that when I'm training, and especially if I'm in a race, and you're trying to go as fast as you can, and so you're exhausted, and I'm in the middle of a race, and I just want to lie down in the snow and cry and have my mommy pick me up. you just you're exerting yourself and you're trying to do your best, but you want to just give up. And so I think I learned from that and other things, and as I say, from my father, to just not give up, to carry on, to exert yourself. And in the middle of it, you don't know, you can't remember why you're doing this, but just keep exerting energy and trying and not giving up. Keep putting one foot in front of the other when you don't know why and you don't know whether it's going to work or anything. But just keep going, putting one foot in front of the other and not giving up. That's in a way the main thing that I think I've called upon.
That's good. That's a great advice, Peter. And so I think we can go ahead and open up the floors, and and if there's anybody who has a question for me or Peter, fire away.
Yeah, awesome. And thank you, Peter, and thank you, Estelle, for sharing. I do have a comment from someone in the chat. Peter, they said, that's awesome. You found a way to instill confidence in your children as well as other children. Cultivating confidence and humility into the younger generation is an indefinite, sustainable legacy.
Yeah, 100%.
That's to say. I'm going to open up for anyone else. I see Cammie has unmuted her mic, so I'm going to let her go. Then we'll let someone else go, and then I have another question.
Okay.
All right, Cammie. Hey, what's up? What's up, everybody out there? I just want to say, Oh, this is Zeke, by the way. I'm sorry, I had to say that. But I just want to say hi to everybody and just say, Peter Elbow, first of all, I really miss you, and you have done a lot for our family, and I really appreciate everything that you have taught us and the times that we've played basketball together, and teaching us how to make a garden and make chili. And also, Estelle, I just want to say that, this is a great idea that you have going on, and I think that your movement is really good. And it's really nice for us to, all of us to be able to keep in touch, especially in times like this, And I've been, really using Zoom a little bit, so it's kind of weird sometimes, getting used to this. So, and being able to just talk to people over, voice and not.
Lost.
Whoops. So, yeah, we just lost, that was Zeke. That was actually my younger brother, not Peter's little brother, but my youngest brother. And so it was nice for him to kind of get on here. And, it's been a while since we last seen Peter.
Yeah.
So, are you back on?
Yeah, I'm back on. I'm just not really showing my face because my hair looks crazy.
No problem. Go ahead.
Yeah. But next time we do this, I'll definitely, I'll be more prepared. Not that I'm really not, but, I didn't really
okay.
I just really wanted to say, I really miss Peter and his wife, and I miss all you guys. But, yeah, it's just really nice to catch up.
Well, it's great to hear your voice, Zeke. It's a long time since we've seen you.
Yeah, it's been a very, very long time, Peter. Actually, I'll go ahead and I'll show my face. Let me see how I can do this. All right, here we go. What's up, guys?
Hey.
Hey. Yeah,
Hey.
Peter, I have very long hair, by the way, now. And it's, of course, I can't go to like anywhere to get my hair braid or anything. So I got a bun just like Estela. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Ezekiel.
Yeah, no doubt.
You're looking great.
Thank you. You as well, Peter.
Thank you.
Where are you living nowadays? Are you still in Massachusetts?
No, we're with the other side of the country in Seattle. Amazing.
Wow, Seattle.
But we
Yeah.
moved out to Seattle to be closer to our children and our grandchildren because they are in Seattle. I mean, they're in Alaska, and we
Gotcha.
didn't move to Alaska. But
I feel like I
Seattle is
remember that.
closer to us.
That's great. I feel like I remember one of your children living in Alaska before.
Yeah.
They still live there, huh?
Yeah,
Wow,
both.
awesome. How are they doing throughout the coronavirus outbreak?
Well, they're doing pretty good. They're keeping themselves safe. And my son's wife is a kindergarten teacher, and my son is a phys ed teacher in elementary school. And they have two adopted children who are, about 10 and 12.
Okay.
Okay.
God bless them. I hope the best for them.
Thank you, Zeke.
Totally.
Okay. So does anybody else have any questions?
Let me see if anyone else, I think I have some comments in the chat. Rel wrote, yes, Peter is a legacy. Thank Estela for a great eye-opening presentation.
You're welcome.
Awesome to Seattle. Well, I have a question, and this question is for Peter, and then I guess Estelle, if you wanted to weigh in. I thought it was pretty cool that Peter had an early exposure to someone by the name of Estelle,
Mhm.
and then how somehow he ended up being a big brother involved with a family with you, and your name is Estella.
Yeah.
But also I see from the presentation this spirit of service, Estelle's service, Peter's service, his service to your family, your service to the elderly. It seems full circle. But my question for Peter is, he mentioned that his mother was very witty and kind of, quick. Did that spirit from his mother transfer to his son? Because he also mentioned that his son was witty. Does he notice that correlation between his mother being quick and witty and his son? And did that transfer in the DNA?
I think it did. For some reason, they talk about character, even physical, or they talk about physical characteristics jumping a generation, like the color of the hair or something like that. And but it did. My son has that quick, very quick wit. I mean, I'm not stupid, but I'm not fast. My son is quick. My mom was quick. Actually, my wife is quick. And anyway, that's and they're all good with language.
Now, as far as, and this is my last question, and I'll open up for anyone else. As far as now grandchildren, do you have grandchildren with your two children?
So I do. My daughter has not married, but my son married, and they found that they couldn't have children, so they adopted. In the end, they adopted two children, and for the first child, they were living in Alaska, and they just put into an agency or something like that to try and find a child and a baby, and they got a baby. Actually, they got this baby on the day the baby was born in Anchorage, Alaska, and this baby was African American, and that was fine with them. So then a couple of years, within a year or two, they wanted to adopt another child. And so then they said to themselves, they got to try and find another child who's African American. So the first child, so they don't just have a situation of only one black child in the family. So they had to work at it, and they ended up adopting a child from Alabama, I think. And anyway, so I have two African American grandchildren, two girls, and they live in Alaska. And I tell you what, you might not realize, I didn't realize it at the time. My son and his wife had lived in Vermont, but when they had these children, they were thinking that they'd go back to Vermont. But when they had these children, they realized they should stay in Alaska, because Alaska is a very multicultural place with a lot of people of different colors and ethnicities. Most people don't realize that. I guess because there's been a lot of Army and Navy and Air Force bases up there, whereas Vermont is just a very, very white state. So they stayed in Alaska, and they appreciate the fact that Alaska is a very, very multicultural place.
Got you. Excellent testimony, and thank you, Peter. Does anyone else have any questions or comments for Estela, for Peter, or anything that they would like to add to the discussion?
Hey, Kadar, I think that you're asking great questions, and it was a good point that you made about how Peter had somebody in his life that was named Estelle, and then came and met our family, and then now there's Estela. You know, that's really like a cool, interesting thing. And then also, like, I did not know that, you know, Alaska was a multicultural place, and I also feel like that may be part of the motivation for Peter's son to adopt children, him and his wife, is because seeing how good of a role that Peter has done. And, you know, it's like the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree, you know? So that's like something that's really heartwarming. You know, you have to really have a good heart to adopt and to care for other people. And yeah, so it's a big thing.
Yeah.
But like I would just think that Alaska is like really, I don't know, not to really sound like crazy, but I thought like Alaska would just be really kind of quiet and like not really multicultural and like cold. But I'm gonna look more into Alaska. But that is really amazing, though.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. And it also shows how the spirit works through DNA. You know, how we've been able to take on certain things from our past, our elders, and certain things that is now instilled in us, and also how we see it down to our own children. And so it's definitely amazing. And Peter, you are truly a legend and a legacy, and we really appreciate you for your time. And you know, and I think also what I wanted to say was the fact that and for the audience, this presentation was mainly to be an eye-opener, to make you think about your legacy and think about the people that came before you and how you can preserve those things, because our elders really hold, like Ashab said, they are like a spiritual bank. They have so much knowledge and value and things that we can learn from, and things that can carry us on through life, and things that we can carry on through our children and their children. And you know, this will probably be a good time to sit down with an elderly and someone in your family. You know, we may not be able to be together, but thank God we have Zoom, and this will be a good time to connect with those and hear their stories and just kind of sit down and listen and ask questions. And actually was able to find a guide online where it can kind of guide you to sit down with the elderly in your life and to, you know, kind of get the questions from, you know, from when they were little children and the things that they learned from their parents, and see how the things that they have now, or the things they told you, how much of that is instilled in you, how much of that comes off you. Because I mean, like, for example, how, you know, my mom started, from seeing my grandmother and my mom take care of other people. Like, I didn't know that was something it would become my purpose. And, you know, from starting a home care agency, first becoming a CNA, starting a home care agency, pursuing a career in nursing. And then now also I created a company where I want to help other people create their own home care agency. So it's amazing how much, DNA, and how much there's so much in that. And it's so fulfilling to know that it didn't really come from me. It just came from something that I seen my grandparents, my mom, and then now me, and then just watching my 4-year-old daughter and seeing how much she's a nurturer. She's a little mommy. The way she cares for her little dolls, and it's just so amazing. And she randomly says things like, I want to go help and take care of this person. I mean, like, she knows, she's been to my client's home with me sometimes. And, the fact that she's, from a young age, she's been wanting to take care of people. It just shows how it's so important for us to preserve these things, and how we have to carry on these things, these positive things that have carried on generation to generation, and continue to pass that on. So I definitely advise everybody in this audio, the audience, to take the time to listen to your elders and capture the story. And then also take the time to figure out what it is that you want to pass on to your children, what you want them to pass on to their children, So it's just been an awesome work. And because Kashab asked me to, with my background in elderlies, when we talked about legacy, that was really something that I didn't really think about. And now, after doing the research and just being so observed, and an elderly legacy has been like, it opened up my eyes to how I want to run my company, and the things I want to leave for my children, and what I want them to pass on to their children. So this is definitely, it's an important work, and I think we all should indulge in that, and listening to our elders and finding out their history. It's very important.
So I wanted to just say one more thing. We also have to be aware of the negative legacy that we carry on as well. So fortunately, we have a great example here where Estelle was able to impact Peter's life. Peter was able to take that and pay it forward and impact Mario's and your family's life and Zeke's life. His children is able to now turn around, bring that full circle, and impact children who are in adoption. We have that great story, but then we also have the story of negative legacy that needs to, what they call generational curses, that need to stop and to be reevaluated. So I think in the evaluation, there needs to be evaluation of positive and negative legacies, so that you don't default and carry on things in your DNA.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. And just like yesterday in day 21, how we discussed forgiveness. And so, sometimes how we, sometimes through generation, how we hold on to bitterness, we hold on to, family curses and things that self-sabotage us. And that's sometimes how we tarnish our family's legacy, because, not being able to deal with certain family members, holding on to unforgiveness and hate, that has shown me how much that can really influence and put a dent on our family's legacy if we don't let go of, if we don't forgive. So this is also like a great example how we have to have the spirit of serving, the spirit of kindness and love, so that we can be able to carry on our legacy, because we know that hate can tarnish that. And so it's really important for us to check in with ourselves and make sure that we're spreading positivity to our families.
Absolutely. Well, I wanted to pull up your information for anyone that's interested in additional information for you. And while I do that, Peter, if you have any closing words, or Estelle, if you have any closing words, feel free to do so. I'm going to queue up, and you'll be in the background, just saying any closing words. Maybe we could start with Peter, and then we could end with you. Okay.
Well, I just want to thank you, Estella, for making all this happen, and for all the things I see you do with your life and with your mom. And I know it hasn't always been easy, and you've really been carrying on, and that's great. And I also would ask you to say hello to Mario for me, to give him a hug from me and tell him that I keep thinking about him. And to your mom.
Okay. Yes, I will. And thank you, Peter. And you know, this has been a great time, and just to be able to catch up with you, to hear, you know, because I've always saw you as a legend, and, you know, to be able to share you with the audience, and, you know, to show us how important it is to preserve our legacy, and how much our legacy affects us from generation to generation. So it's just, it's an honor, and I'm just so thankful to be part of this presentation and to be presenter. And, you know, here's my information on the screen. And if you want to reach out to me, you can find me on Facebook on the Future of Home Care, and we can go from there. And so thank you, Kashav, and thank you, Rafaela, for all you guys been doing. And, you know, this 30-day challenge has been a great experience, and such a blessing to be able to have so much free information. It's just been, you know, to be able to pour into me so I can pour into the others. It's been a blessing to be part of this experience. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And great to see you, Zeke.
Peter, it was great to see you as well. I really miss you, and say hi to your wife for me as well, and to your children.
I will.
Totally. It was great to see you. Stella, it's good to see you as well. Yep. I miss Andy. I miss everybody. I can't wait for all this all to be over. I mean, all of us can't wait, of course, but it's just coming too much. But yeah, Peter, it's nice to talk to you, and it was a great conversation. This was a nice conversation, and I really like the idea still that you have of this 30-day redemption, you know?
Yeah. And so if you want to sign up, you can always, the link is right here. You know, like I said, it's been such a great opportunity to be, you know, to be a part of it and to be a presenter. So, you know, thank you.
Totally. I think I'll even try to invite Safer. Safer would love to get in on something like this, you know? And Peter, I'm not sure if you've ever met Safer, if you remember Safer, but, you know.
I remember him.
Yeah, totally. It'd be nice for us to all have, like, you know, a conversation and, you know, just talk about where we are now in life and just about life in general. Yeah.
Yeah, I have very fond memories of Safer. Make sure and give him a hug from me. And
Totally. Yeah. He's doing okay. He's living out in Virginia, but I talk to him every day almost. So yeah, he's doing pretty well.
great.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Peter.
Well, thank you, Stella. A great hug to you.
You too. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye,
Thank
everybody.
you.